Despite only being 2 weeks into 2026, the Avengers Doomsday teasers have already been marked as one of the biggest marketing hits of 2026. But have they been a success, and what do they tell us about the future of the MCU? All that will be discussed in this episode of Snack Break, the perfect podcast pop on while preparing your cup of tea or ideal snack or beverage. We're also discussing the brand new UK season of Celebrity Traitors and reviewing Zootropolis 2. Let's roll the intro. I would also like to talk about the Avengers Doomsday trailers. For those who have somehow been living under a rock for the last little while, Avengers Doomsday is the fifth Avengers movie, well, 5th/6th, we're not quite sure, the fifth main Avengers movie that's set to release on the 18th of December 2026. This is perhaps going to be, well, definitely going to be one of the biggest film releases of all time. It's combining, to a degree, but also sort of having to deal with the fallout and of the past few years of Marvel, which have obviously had varying degrees of success, but it's bringing together characters from across many years of Marvel, including the Fantastic Four, X-Men, the Wakandans, and as we found out recently, Thor, Chris Evans as Captain America, and Rob Downey Jr. is going to be returning, not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom. Now, Marvel have recently gone through an interesting strategy of releasing sort of small, well, what do we call them? Don't know quite how to describe them, because the Russos have said that what they've been releasing recently are not teasers or trailers, but are stories and clues. I'm sorry, but they can also be that, but I'm going to be honest, I personally think they are definitely teasers. they are, you know, they're teasing us with the fact that the X-Men will return, that the Fantastic Four will return. All this stuff, they are short little videos that are teasing the movie. I'm going to say unarguably they're teasers. But anyway, I'm not going to debate that any further. The thing is, on this channel, I have reacted to both the Chris Evans Captain America trailer and the Chris Hemsworth Thor teaser. Since then, I've been very, very busy, so I haven't really had the chance to dissect the final two teasers or stories or clues that we've got in this 4-week run. I believe the intention initially was to release these in before Avatar, and that Avatar Fire and Ash, the third Avatar film, and that was going to be one of Disney's techniques to not only build up hype, but to also just get people to go see Avatar. There were a lot of leaks, so those have now been releasing on YouTube every Tuesday, and we have now got, in addition to the Captain America and Thor teaser, we've got an X-Men teaser and a Fantastic Four / Wakandans teaser. And I have to say, these have definitely been the strongest teasers. And actually, I'd say that the level of excitement has been built up and scaled very well across these 4 teasers, starting with the Captain America teaser, which was really only confirming the return of character who we basically knew that Captain America was coming back to some degree. Thor was a nice teaser. It was very good. It gave us a look at what the future of the character might be, but we knew he was returning. Then the X-Men teaser is really, really nice. They pack the stuff in there with a lovely blend between the cinematic shots, because they're obviously not giving loads away in these teasers, and the nice cinematic shots of the mansion and all that stuff. And then also you've got pivotal characters here. James Mangold James Marsden, in the Cyclops, in the comic accurate Cyclops suit, just looks so cool. And him doing the laser eye, it is brilliant. It's really, really nice. And then you've also got legends in Ian McKellen as Magneto and Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier. It is really, and there's a lovely shot of the two of them holding hands, which I'm not particularly familiar with the X-Men 20th Century Fox element of things, but it's a really, really nice teaser, and contrasting that sort of piece with the absolute destruction and chaos of the James Marsden. Why do I keep calling him James Marsden? The James It is James Marsden. Cyclops, sort of rampage almost. It's just really, really cool. And that new suit just blends in so well. It's really, really nice. And although I don't have a ton of theories connected to it, there's obviously something that's making Cyclops a very angry boy. Is Jean in trouble? Jean Grey could be. We don't know how Jean Grey's going to come into play with this. It could be Sadie Sink. That's rumor at the moment. We don't know. But it's a very, very exciting teaser. Then the week after that, we got the Wakandans / Fantastic Four teaser, which initially I wasn't particularly, I was excited, but I was a bit disappointed by the fact that the Wakandans and the Fantastic Fours, who are both major elements and are going to be major elements of this film in their own right, were being bunched into one trailer. But actually, or teaser. But actually, I thought they did it in a really nice way, because we get a look at the state of Wakanda, things in Wakanda, and the evolution of Wakanda, and Shuri's role in that. And we get a nice look at what looks to be a Wakandan ship, but is equally very reminiscent of the ship that we see in the Secret Wars comic, the 2016 run, which is very, very interesting. And then it is... I loved this. I got so excited. This was what made this teaser for me. Ben Grimm just does a nice few lines. Ben Grimm, Fantastic Four, Nancy Street, NYC, Earth, or something like that. It's really, it's cool, it's classy, it's down to earth, it's perfectly Fantastic Four, it's perfectly Ben Grimm, and I really, really like this. And it's the first time we've seen a member of the Fantastic Four actually interacting in person with another MCU character. They haven't seen other superheroes up to this point, and I think that it's really, really exciting. I've really enjoyed that. And the fact, somebody pointed out in the comments that the fact that the heroes are scared gives this trailer so much gravity. It makes us scared. There's clearly a massive threat here in Doom, and I really, really enjoyed this trailer. I actually think putting the Wakandans and the Fantastic Four, and we've got Namor in there, we've got all sorts of stuff going on in one trailer, was a really strong move. And we've got some really nice dialogue for Shuri as well. I think it's a really, really strong teaser. The one question is the fact that there's a lot of dead space in here, and it's looking like things might have been edited out. And if things have been edited out, it is certainly not the first time, because Marvel they've put sort of fake trailers out to a degree. Hulk wasn't in the Battle for Wakanda, but they put him in there to hype characters up. To be honest, I think in the Shuri shot, I'm not really... I guess, yeah, I can sort of... I'm seeing like Twitter posts of people like circling the dead space. That could just be a framing choice. And it sort of obeys the rules of thirds to a degree. But equally, yeah, I can see in the Shuri shot where she's walking into the distance how it does sort of look like things have been blurred and edited out. And then the Ben Grimm one, I didn't really see, but it sort of does look like things have been blurred to a degree. Some people have theorized that that's the Fantastic Four ship. I don't know why. We know by this point that they're coming into the MCU, so I don't know why Marvel would be so intent on hiding that. Some people have suggested Doctor Doom's there. He does come over into the MCU from the Fantastic Four universe, so that is very simultaneously very plausible, but equally it's like, really? Why are they hanging out? If they're so scared and worried, why are they hanging out? But could Doom be trying to bargain, negotiate, because he's stealing the children? I don't know. I don't have the answers here. I'm just theorizing. Or could they initially view him as a friend? Obviously, Sue looks concerned in the Fantastic Four post-credit scene, the first post-credit scene. But could they actually be like, oh, it's Doom, yay! It's Victor, yes, of course. It's Victor, Reed's friend from uni, yay! How are you? And then things sort of devolve from there. I'm not sure, but in conclusion, I mean, I don't have the answers here, so I'm sorry for a bit of a ramble, but in conclusion, I think the Avengers Doomsday trailers started off slow. Captain America trailer was a bit of a disappointment for me. Thor was pretty exciting. And then from there, things have just built up more and more and more. And I really do think the X-Men trailer and the Fantastic Four and Wakanda trailer has been an absolute, has been the pinnacle of this journey so far. And it's just exciting to think that this film is, all being well, going for release this year. Marvel, I believe, still have a Doomsday timer going on so far. On at the moment. It does look like we could be getting our first teaser of this at the Super Bowl, which is a very, very exciting thought. I really hope that is the case. Is this Sunday the Super Bowl? Hang on, I'm just checking at the moment. Looks like Sunday is, yes, Sunday's the Super Bowl. Nice. So it's very, very exciting. I do hope we get a Super Bowl teaser there. Obviously, Marvel have used that to their advantage with Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a massive hit both in terms of trailers and the movie itself. So we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, I am very, very excited for Avengers Doomsday. Let's talk Traitors, because for those unaware, the fourth peasant season, the fourth civilian season of the hit BBC sort of semi-reality game show is now well and truly in swing. We've only got 3 episodes left by this point. I believe it is sticking to the usual runtime or usual episode count rather, of the civilian version, which is 12 episodes as opposed to the 9 episodes of the celebrity version, where you're getting 2 episodes a week as opposed to the 3. So we have just had our third batch of 3 episodes now, which means there are only 3 episodes left. So I thought this would be an interesting time to just have a little chat prior to the finale, or those final 3 episodes, just to sort of review the series so far, discuss Traitors things generally, because there is quite a lot going on, and yeah, just play some theories, chat about the newest mechanics, and yeah, hopefully have a bit of fun with that. So for those unaware, The Traitors is a massive semi-reality TV show that first rose to prominence in the UK, at least in 2021. I believe it was originally developed in Europe and it had been a hit out there, or it had at least been a known concept out there for a little while. And then the BBC obviously got involved and they produced, lo and behold, The Traitors UK, with Claudia Winkleman as the lead, as the front. Since then, I believe these came after a variety of spin-offs set in other countries have ensued. You've got Traitors America, which I believe is also having its 4th season at the moment. I've watched 1, maybe 2. I think I've watched 1 season of I've watched 1 season of UK Traitors, 1 celebrity UK Traitors season, and then 1 of the American season and 1 of the, I believe, Australian season. It might have been, I think it was the Australian season, which do an interesting thing where it's sort of like semi-celebrities that they're putting in with the civilians. So it's like, TikTokers who have some degree of substantial-ish following that are put in with the peasants, like us. So anyway, it's a massive hit, and I have to say I wasn't really that into it going with the idea of season 4 of the civilian version launching in the UK on New Year's Day, because I understood that obviously New Year's Day is quite an opportunity for big TV. It's obviously over Christmas, it would be many people's last day off work, and it's a good evening, especially moving it forwards to 8 p.m. now. I do think that is a better time for the show. They've moved that forwards, and they've got, it's New Year's Day is just a great time, and that entire period is Christmas holiday period, obviously, is a great time to capitalize on viewership. So I understand for that reason launching a new show at that point, or the new season, would make a lot of sense. But equally, it was only about 6 weeks prior that we got Celebrity Traitors, which was just such a hit. Traitors really doesn't see, or at least in the UK, Traitors really hasn't seemed to have missed so far. And Celebrity Traitors only confirmed that it was definitely the biggest show, or biggest risk the show has taken so far, and it more than paid off. Alan Carr, spoiler alert, was the winner of that season, and both in terms, I think, of sort of profile and personality, although a bunch of celebrities got added boosts from that, who, like the likes of Joe Marler, who just retired from his rugby career. He has a new podcast now produced by the BBC. It benefited a lot of people. Kat Deely has shown that she's obviously a very interesting personality in her own right, aside from her music. It was a massive success all around, and like people were crying at the finale. I wasn't quite, but I did go back and like I rewatched that final moment when Alan starts tearing up and like they're all just so nice to him. It's lovely. So Celebrity Traitors was a massive hit, and as such, the idea of only 6 weeks later getting a new version or a new season of Civilian Traitors sort of rubbed me the wrong way slightly. It felt like this could be the first big miss of the show. And I was just a bit worried in that regard. I personally felt they could have maybe, I know it's all like Traitors spooky wintry, but I felt they could have delayed it to February going into March, that sort of thing, just to sort of bridge the gap a bit more so that it's not just the case of, okay, November to February, you have like insane amounts of Traitor stuff, at least in the UK, and then for 7 months you just get nothing. And obviously there's like other Traitors releasing around the world, and maybe that plays into it, but I just wasn't that into it, is my point. It did take a few episodes, but I have been more than won over. And again, another thing I wasn't quite sure how going back into the civilian version would rub me, because equally they're playing for their own money. They're a bit more competitive in that sense. You're getting more episodes. I think they do feel like longer episodes this time around, certainly as well. They don't seem quite so, maybe they've never been, but it felt like, certainly I know they're going over the hour mark quite a lot, which I appreciate. It's a good show. It deserves it. So there's obviously that more competitive edge, but equally celebrities really know how to present on camera. And so I wasn't quite sure how I was going to feel about going back to the civilian version. And as I said, it's been massively enjoyed by me. I've really, really loved it. Did take me a few episodes to get into the characters, but the more and more we've got to know them, the more I am all in for it. Our current traitors are, spoiler alert, Stephen and Rachel, and I have to say I would be shocked beyond belief if they backstab each other in the finale, because I think they've made a really nice duo. It feels like they're getting to know each other and build up a bit of a rapport, a bit of a friendship there, and that's been really, really nice. You've had other great characters in there. I was rooting for Jessie, but brutal. I mean, realistically, she was on to Stephen, and so Stephen played a very, very risky game there. Again, this will make no sense to people who haven't watched Celebrity Traitor or watched Traitors, but it is what it is. So I was rooting for Jessie, but hey, I'm now rooting for Jessie's murderer, because Stephen is just a really, really likable, funny, warm character who interacts with everybody else in the castle very well, and also just is hugely entertaining in his own right. The way he interacted with like the sort of haunted cabin mission was just really, really funny. And those aforementioned missions, I think, are one of the strongest points of the series, and continue to be one of the strongest points of the series. Not the missions in their own right, which are always good, but in my opinion, compared to the rest of the show, they may be a bit hit or miss. But the fact that the Traitors continues to expertly disguise the fact that as an episode structure, it's got a strong format, and between open episode, it largely goes open episode, they have breakfast, they find out who's murdered, then bit of discussion, mission. After the mission, a bit of discussion, and in that discussion you can cut between people who are expressing their own honest opinions when they're in the room by themselves, speaking to the camera, and then also stuff within the castle, interaction between the traitors and the faithfuls and all the rest of it. Then from there you go into the round table, which obviously takes up, I suppose, actually varying amounts of time depending on what else is going on in that episode. And depending on how the round table goes, there'll obviously sometimes be a massive shock revelation. Things will go down there. That's really interesting. I'd be very curious to know how long a lot of stuff goes on for in real life and what the actual structure of their day is. But in terms of editing, it's very well done, because after the round table, you go back, you have some discussion, and depending on like the episode, you can then usually cut to the Traitor's turret, where something will be happening, whether it's just discussion or it's a special variation that's going on that particular day. So I do think that continues to be a really strong structure of the show. And the fact that you sort of don't notice it to the point where it gets repetitive, but it does definitely play into the show's strengths, I think. Now, one of the biggest things to do with this season, one of the biggest discussion points of this season, has been the Red Cloak, which is to do with the secret traitor the secret traitor being a traitor that the main traitors in the show don't know about. There's a fourth traitor going in who is the secret traitor, and the other traitors don't know about them. The faithful obviously don't know who this is. Neither do the traitors. But neither do we. Which is really interesting because for a show that's pre-recorded by obviously half a year plus, it gives the audience not a degree of feedback, but a degree of involvement that you'd think, because you can't really do it live, would be very, very difficult to achieve. And again, it answers the question that I've seen a lot of people posing, which is, would traitors be better if you didn't know who the traitors were? And for that reason, it seems like a very good concept. I have personally found the secret traitor fine. I didn't love it. I think it was... maybe we've gotten into it more had it lasted longer. It was cut short, and I felt that you could sort of see the intention there to maybe have that be more of an ongoing thing, and that was... Or maybe it wasn't, but it did seem, at least from the perspective of the viewer, that it was cut short quite early on. And the thing is, you're not in the castle. You're watching an edit of what's happened in the castle, and so you're bearing that in mind. And so I personally found it not frustrating, but it just wasn't an element of the show I was particularly interested in, largely because I do think it was interesting to answer that question. And some people really enjoyed that. But I personally don't really enjoy sort of doing detective work as I'm watching the show. I just want to watch it, have a bit of fun, have a bit of a laugh. And let's be honest, it's reality TV. Part of the fun is being able to be like, woo. If you're sitting there watching it with... I'm lucky to be sitting there watching it with my family. And I'm sitting there going, stupid. Or you're reacting to what's going on screen. And obviously, don't go and message the contestants on social media and be like, that was stupid. But you're reacting to it in your own homes, and you're just reacting to the show, and that's part of the fun. You're watching it, you're thinking, oh dear, they should have done that. And it's good fun in that regard. So personally, I thought the secret traitor thing didn't pay off particularly well, but nonetheless was an interesting experiment and an interesting spin on the show. Whether it's something that they continue to utilize going forwards, and whether it goes into other variations of the show, I don't know yet. I will be very, very intrigued to see. One other quick thing I want to mention, this was originally supposed to be a fairly brief feature, but one other thing I want to mention is a brief gripe, not with the show itself, but just the way, and again, no issues with the contestants, they all seem lovely, I'm sure they're all lovely people, it's just personal opinion. There's been a few contestants who have sort of got to the point, and there's been some amazing contestant revelations partway through here. Some things we've sort of seen before where it's I'm related to this person in this way. It's okay. But it's still interesting and exciting. But also some things I don't want to mention in case you haven't watched. Well, I'm spoiling a lot of things here. But just some interactions within the castle that have been really, really fun to watch. And so those have often led on to some quite interesting situations where people have been on the brink of being voted out, and they've essentially just got... Unlike other animated sequels, which are usually highlights of my calendar, this one seemed to just sort of appear out of nowhere. In fact, probably helped along by the fact that it has only actually been a few years since we received a largely ignored Disney Plus series. Of course, this film has been a long time in the making, and the sheer effort to realise this world is acutely evident throughout, but it's just worth noting. Thankfully, though, this film welcomes us back to the titular city with all the glitz and glory of the original, with the film's biggest strength being its ability to show us new stuff throughout. It definitely dodges my biggest family movie gripe of travel stories. So many travel stories. By injecting every location with an electric display of design, humour, and classic Disney style and ingenuity. The film also chooses to utilise its references to the original sparingly, with returns largely bringing a smile as opposed to a sigh. And it's hard not to smile at this movie, for although the character beats may not be particularly groundbreaking, everything is so well imagined that you can't help but be impressed. I would say that this film isn't somehow as edgy as the original. Although its predecessor was never exactly Pulp Fiction, some of those twists really took me by surprise for a family film at the time. Perhaps it's a Disney thing, perhaps it's just this story, or perhaps it's just my personal experience. Again, not a massive issue at all. It does, however, feel as though this film occasionally suffers from clippable writing, a term that, although in my opinion fairly over-applied, does seem to fit portions of this movie, with certain sequences seeming to only exist for 8-year-olds' laughs and TikTok clips. No hate, of course, on either. It is, of course, entirely possible that I'm not the target audience here, or that I've simply been rubbed the wrong way by the initial lack of story in the trailer, which was sort of all flashing, all dancing, which I was sort of sadly reminded of prior to entering the screening. It wasn't a trailer I loved. I just felt that, it was something that was more for marketing purposes as opposed to actually making a good, enticing trailer. But hey, the point of a trailer in the end is marketing, so do what you want, Disney. Overall, Zootropolis 2 is an undeniably fun ride, continuing to realise the fun and imaginative spirit of the original, yet, in my opinion, never quite living up to the former story. It is close though. That being said, I'm not entirely Disney's intended audience at this point, so the fact that it still earns a well-impressed review from somebody outside of the marketing demographic, albeit somebody who does enjoy animated movies, should hopefully say something about its success as an overall family film. On Letterboxd, I gave Zootopia 3.5, Zootopia 2, or Zootropolis 2, 3.5 stars out of 5. But what are your thoughts on Zootropolis or Zootopia 2? If you want to let us know, you can email the show at hwsnapbreakpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on Spotify or YouTube. That is it for this episode, though, of Snack Break, the podcast pop on where preparing your cup of tea or ideal snack or beverage. For now, though, I've been Bendigo Blue, and this has been a Hungry Capybara production. Thank you very, very much for listening. We've got hopefully a few more episodes coming up over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be discussing on the new Whovian feed the War Between the Land and the Sea, which is the Doctor Who spin-off that came out a few weeks ago now, so we finally are hopefully going to be getting around to that, and lots of good stuff coming en route as well. Today we discussed the Avengers Doomsday teasers, Zootropolis 2 and the Traitors UK. For now though, have a very good day. See you soon. Stay safe.